So we've got a bit of a first look video today. We've got the Project X Denali Blue, and this is toy use only at the moment. We've had only a few shafts out there for pre-release. Thought we'd do a bit of testing on it, talk a little bit about it and compare it to shaft we know well. So, the Denali Blue, it's something that's been in development for 14, 15 months or so, 18 months, and it's really a case of looking at how the structure of shaft, some newer materials, some slight changes in profile can optimize energy transfer. So we all know this, there's only a certain amount you can do with shafts and bend profiles. So of the information that we currently have on the shaft, this is really due for proper release into next year. What do we know about this shaft? So currently on tour only, with a few of us selected fitters have been able to get some pre-release on them. So structure we have, they've done it. They've got very, very stable butt section. So the more stable the butt section, it can stand up to a heavier load. And this is really designed around sort of stronger swinger, lower spin, much kind of tour style shaft in that respect. But one of the things they've done, they've got a straight taper through the midsection. So what that does is it creates a very, very smooth load, a smoother feel, because it's a very even bend through that section. But it also optimizes a bit of ball speed. In principle, helps that load move through the shaft consistently, helps it a smooth energy transfer. It's about getting the energy from the load at the grip end through to the club head end. So that just helps transfer energy down the shaft. And then what they've got is a relatively kind of mid to stiff tip section to control the launch and the spin. So from a structure point of view, fairly low torque. In the 60 and the TX, which is what we've got here, it's a torque of 3.1. Now, all manufacturers measure them slightly differently. So if you did look at a shaft from Mitsubishi, one from Project X, one from Acura, they are going to have slightly different, what they actually measure on a standardized scale is going to come out slightly different to how some of the manufacturers measure them. So they can't be compared like for like unless using a system which is standardized. But that is quite a low torque level. And actually with some materials now, you can actually get a little bit more feedback and feel whilst maintaining that stability. And really the tip section is also designed to optimize for the current club head sizes. Because of the size of the head and where the weight sits relative to the tip of the shaft, it can gear a little bit more the bigger the head than some of the older, smaller driver heads. So that's one of the areas that shafts have had to adapt over the years to control the club head on the end and control the launch and the spin. So what we'll do is we're going to hit a few shots with a shaft that we know well. Everyone knows the Ventus, the Blue TR. So we've got a TR Blue 6X, and we're going to compare that to the Denali Blue 60 TX. So going to get a few shots with each and get a little look at the data, but also just describe what it feels like. So Ventus TR, very, very similar. The TR section gives stability in the grip end, and then we've got a very stable tip section as well. So really not dissimilar in structure to how the Denali is set up. So I've got this in my my same head as I used, TSR 3 in an 8 degree. Okay. So one of the characteristics of the Ventus TR is it's got a very tight feel because of that weave in the butt section. So actually in terms of the hit with, very, very stable feeling shaft. There's not an awful lot of kick going on through the shaft because of that, the Velocore material in the tip, which is very, very stiff, and then the weave in the butt section. But as a result, it's a mid bounce. It's certainly not a tip weighted shaft. Let's give that one more, a little bit heel side, but a solid move. But very crisp feeling shaft. So you get a little bit of sensation through that midsection, but then very, very stable down the tip. And so quite a crisp, very tight feeling shaft. Historically, where it was described as a very low torque feel, really kind of hangs onto the face through the ball. So I'm then going to swap the Denali in. Now what I do know, because I've had a little bit of a pre-check on this, is that the Denali in this setup, swing weight's just a little bit lighter than the Ventus TR. So just going to put a little bit of extra weight on that just to get them comparable. So one of the things that this purports to do is to feel very, very smooth. So the pickup's not wildly dissimilar to the Ventus. So it definitely swings, although the swing weight was a little bit lighter. It doesn't swing lighter in the head. If anything, there's maybe a little bit more feel for the club head. Again, very solid through the ball. It's definitely a very different sensation to hit with. I think I would say there's a real crispness and tightness to the Ventus CR. This one has quite a lot of solidity to it. It almost feels there's a bit more guts down the bottom end. And it feels personal, so the way I'm going to interpret feel will be different than someone else swinging it. But whereas the Ventus feels like it's very, very tight rotationally, this one just feels like a little bit, structure a little bit more solid in the whole bottom end of the shaft, but both equally controllable. So you definitely get, even though this is a TX, you definitely get a little bit of give through that middle section. You know, it definitely feels like it gives you a little bit back, but then ramrod stable at the tip. So I'll give this one more. Got underneath that a little bit, not the greatest swing, but it's, both shafts are slightly on the heavier side for me. I'm at 64 grams is my optimal. These are 66, 67. But interesting enough, whereas the TR, I think there are a lot of players that might find that a little bit hard feeling. The Denali, whilst it's very, very solid, doesn't have that same kind of stiffness to it. It's very stout, but it's not, you know, the Ventus has a really tight feel to it, would be the way I would describe it, whereas Denali has a sort of more solid sound and contact to it. So in terms of data comparison, to make sure that the last one was an absolutely horrible strike. You know, between the two, and this is where, you know, what we can see from a data point of view is actually managed to strike the TR a little bit better, just those couple of swings. So ball speed, to all intents and purposes, the same, but a couple of miles an hour less club speed. Whereas I generated more club speed with the Denali, but wasn't quite as centered with it, so ball speed efficiency not quite as high. But for very similar angle of attack, what you see, launch angle less than half a degree difference, spin 80 revolutions difference. So whereas the Denali for me had a hair less spin, it actually had a hair more launch. Ultimately, flight-wise, very, very similar. But there is a distinct difference in sensation to hit with. I think the Denali is something that very clearly has been designed at tour. That rigidity, that solid feel through contact, and certainly under the hands as well. I think that's sort of the kind of thing that high-speed tour style players have always liked. We're seeing some very different profiles in the long drive drivers going much softer now. But actually for that confidence that the face is stable and the dispersion is going to be low, both these shafts give that real solid, stable sensation which the high speed players are going to like. But I think it's hard to describe feel sometimes, but it's that solidity without harshness that I think in this shaft and the Denali in particular, I think they've done a very, very good job with. And once we get to test some of the softer flexes, I think that smoothness is really going to come through. So that really comes from that straight taper design in that midsection. So really something we're looking forward to getting the rest of the products in. They're doing a 70 and an 80. What flexes across the range, not entirely certain yet, so we're kind of in a pre-release period, but certainly a shaft that it's clear that Project X have worked hard on this one. There are going to be a couple of models phasing out in the new year, so this will almost certainly be a replacement for one of the more stout designs, and we look forward to getting the rest of the models in the beta test out and into the new year, probably February time, for everyone else to hit as well.